Light as a feather, stiff as a board. Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
We are the weirdos, mister.
Black as night, erase death from our sight. White as light, mighty hectate make it right.
I myself am strange and unusual. Cast a circle, spark some incense, and grab a cup of tea because it's time for the Cousins Coven podcast. I'm Sharon.
And this is Wendy. Welcome back to the Coven, you guys. It's been like 2 seconds for us and like a whole week for you.
Yeah, maybe we're doing some back-to-back recording this Sunday, trying to get caught up so we don't have to be editing all last minute.
That's right. And this week, what do you have going on? What kind of news do you have?
So today is, I believe, Easter Sunday. It's Jesus Zombie Day. And I found this fun, old, quirky tradition called the egg dance that I wanted to talk about. I've never heard of the egg dance before, so I'm wondering if you ever have either.
No.
All right, so let's get into it. So eggs, they are a symbolism in both pagan and Christian cultures. They represent birth, rebirth, spring season, and of course the rebirth of like Jesus for Easter and everything. And the egg dance was commonly performed in Britain and Europe. And it was kind of a form of entertainment and a game. This was a big thing in the 15th to the 19th centuries. And there's a couple versions of how this game would be played. And the goal for all of the versions is the same, though, to break as few eggs or none. Break no eggs. And so what you have to do is you have an egg, you put it in a bowl, and you have to tip the egg slowly out of the bowl into a white circle or a white chalk circle. It can't leave the circle. And then with your feet, you have to hold the bowl and get the egg and cover it with the bowl. And you're just supposed to not crack the egg or let the egg out of your little circle. And it just sounds like so bizarre that this is like a little party game for Easter Sundays. Like it kind of sounds like their version of Twister, just like something really weird and stupid that doesn't make sense.
That is very strange.
That is
kudos
strange.
to you for finding this in such a short amount of time, you guys.
Yeah, and
Sharon just came up with this like on the fly.
I know. I was like, I need some news. So, but it doesn't end here though. I have a little bit more on the egg games. So
okay,
the other versions are you could make it like a more of a dance, like its namesake. So where you would have to have a circle that you're dancing in, and you have to do like a really high energy jig. You have to move constantly, and there's like sheet music in these old school books that you can find with instructions on what kind of dance you're supposed to be doing. And the entire time you're dancing in this circle, you're trying not to like slam down on an egg or break it. So that is just one part of the game. And then they make it more of like a couples sport. It's getting into like fun, like partners skating kind of mode, where you can fill like the whole little grassy area. Like back in the day when people were doing like their little parties in the garden and things like that, like high society, they would fill the whole lawn with the eggs. And instead of like going to find them, the game was to do a couple's dance around like 100 eggs in a field. And if you broke an egg, then you lost. And in some cases, it would be like these two couples, they're going to try to dance. And if they can do the dance without breaking any single egg, then they could get married without any objections and no one could object or stop them. And like I saw this article that was talking about this one handsome duke, and all these girls were trying to dance with him to get married to him, and one girl like successfully did it without breaking an egg, and so she won the guy.
Oh my gosh, that is some straight up old wives' tale stuff right there.
Like, can you imagine? It sounds like such a wholesome, fun game, and like how silly it would be.
Yeah, I'm like, what? I can't even imagine like if I would have even been able to do that.
And think of like the smell of the yard after all those eggs had been like left out in the sun and just like in the lawn. So the egg dance, I think we should bring it back.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
So that's my little Easter tidbit.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it so much. Man, Easter, that's something I haven't celebrated in a long time. You know, when my kids were little, we only did it very short amount of time because even back then my daughter was like, anything God related, even back then she was like, I'm like, babe. I couldn't take my son to a church without him bawling his eyes out.
He didn't like to go?
No, he used to scream like bloody murder as if somebody was poisoning him.
Witch, you're a witch. That's awesome. He's just burning alive in the church.
He's like,
I remember like...
Except for when he was baptized. Sorry. You go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, no, it's good to know.
Yeah.
He had a successful baptism, so he's not going to hell now. Good.
Right.
So for me, Easter, I never believed in the Easter Bunny. I have a distinct visual memory of like watching my dad go out to the garage to grab our Easter baskets and just like, hee, I see him. It's him. He's the Easter Bunny. I know it's a lie. And then just like waiting for him to come like deliver him to us. And like, I was always down for presents and materialism and chocolate as a kid. Like, that was fun. And
how about as a kid? Even as an adult.
You're right. I still very much love my chocolate. And so
I was calling myself out, not you.
No, you're right though. Like that's if I had woken up today and had an Easter basket just full of like Reese's chocolate eggs, I'd have been happy.
Yeah.
But
me too.
Yeah, normally I don't do the whole spiritual thing. Obviously, not a Christian. I could do the Ostara vibes and just welcome in the spring, that kind of thing. That's kind of where my Easter would stop. But you know, to each their own. Yeah. For us, we like to have our own fun by escaping into the weird and the wonderful.
Yes. So today, to escape, we're talking about
Skinwalker Ranch. Yes,
I'm doing a little drum. You can't see it, but I'm drumming right now.
You're air drumming?
Like, yeah.
This is something we've talked about in passing, but we've never like dived into. I know that for a while I could never convince you to want to talk about it. And then all of a sudden you're just like, we're doing Skinwalker Ranch and I've got everything we need to know. And I'm like, wait, what? Like you're ready out of nowhere and you gave me no time, but you're just gonna break it down for me today and I'm excited.
I know you wanted to do it so bad. And I was like, yeah, not ready. It's like I was a ham cooking in the oven and I was waiting for that little popper to come up. Ding, I'm ready and I've got everything.
Okay, cool. So this is just a fun topic. I can't wait to hear everything you have broken down for us. Like, I don't know why some people like to call this the Disneyland of the paranormal, but I'm like, there's no rides here. There's nothing fun or safe about Skinwalker Ranch.
Right. I feel like there's so much stigma related just around the word Skinwalker itself because people don't really want to know or don't really know what it's about. And I know that for me, when I started researching it this past couple of days, that my kids were like, Skinwalker? What the heck is a Skinwalker? And so I was like, I don't know, what is a Skinwalker? And so I actually had to look into it. But I feel like with the research on this, I just dipped my toe in. I feel like there's so much that's not released to the public on this situation. And I'll kind of go more about as to why that is later on.
Yeah.
But I wanted to start off by talking about kind of the origin story. So in order to understand Skinwalker Ranch, you have to go back to before Skinwalker Ranch was even a thing, before it was labeled that.
Before the white man.
Yeah, before the white man. So for those who don't know, this ranch in this area is in Utah at this place. It's kind of like in the northeastern corner of Utah in that little small section next to Colorado, and Wyoming's up above. So it's like an hour outside of Colorado, 2.5 hours outside of Salt Lake City, in this little place called Ballard County in a town called Fort Duchesne. But really that whole area encompasses at the bottom of this place called the Uintah Basin. And that whole area has activity. It's not just this place that we labeled Skinwalker Ranch. It's the area.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this area, the local Indians believe that the phenomenon stems from a curse from the late 1800s. But this phenomenon is actually much older than that. Initially, when archaeologists were going out there and were speaking to the local Indian tribes, they were saying, well, there was this curse where the white man was trying to come and take this land, and we were only granted a small portion in Utah, and the rest of it was given to another tribe. And so they thought that during that time period, the shamans put a curse around the land. But that isn't quite true based on what I was finding. So I did find that other Indians were saying that it was much older, and then archaeologists took trips out because there are all these underground caves. So they went around and they found all of these cave drawings in every single cave from ancient times. There's pictures of aliens, dark shadows, people with wings, pictures of shapeshifters, all drawn into these caves.
Nice.
So the phenomenon is so much older than the ranch.
There's so much that's popping into my head. My imagination is going crazy. Like initially,
Right.
when you're saying they're blaming it on this curse, it sounds like fear, like how people are blaming witches for everything. It's just like, oh, it's just this curse, and they put it on this land. But I love the fact that you're finding these badass cave drawings. I'm gonna have to Google that shit and see if I can find any.
Yes, and you'll see. I guess there's drawings too of the local Indians doing rituals during that time period. So I think there should be some that pop up showing that too, depicting that.
Okay, sorry for my typing. I had to go look.
That's okay. That's all right. I did also find out that the Uintah Indians believe that the word Skinwalker itself means alien. And they believe that aliens have the ability to become shapeshifters, and that these aliens also have the ability to either steal part of your soul or steal part of your genes so that they can shapeshift into you or something similar to you.
Oh my gosh. So you found that it was linked, that they believed it was linked to aliens. I found that it was linked to them blaming witches, basically, male and female witches, into shapeshifting. Did that come up for you?
Nope, not at all.
Because that kind of sounded like bullshit to me.
Yeah, I don't think so, because I was reading actual reports from local Indians in that time period. So.
It sounds like you're on the pulse. Like, the thing with Skinwalker Ranch is that I've also heard, allegedly, is that most of what you're going to find on YouTube is bullshit. That most of what you're going to find is hidden secret knowledge, like you mentioned, that you're going to get into. Mm-hmm. So this makes sense that it's convoluted.
Yeah, extremely convoluted. Just like a lot of things in the paranormal. I feel like we don't know the full truth.
Yeah, because who wants to admit it all, because you're going to sound crazy. So, plus there's so many other layerings going on here.
Mm-hmm. So before we get into the ranch too, I kind of wanted to talk about what type of activity locals are seeing in the area. So every single witness story every account that I heard or read, all was very similar. And those are the ones that I gravitated towards because I was finding the commonality in between the stories.
Mm-hmm.
The locals were saying that they have massive UFO sightings. It's extremely random. They come up at random times, but they're all this dark colored UFO, and it's kind of in the shape of an oval. They have massive lights around the edges of the UFO, kind of like in the center, like you would see from those old UFO photos, those oval shaped UFOs, but instead of the craft being metallic colored, it's a dark color. So it blends in with the colors of the clouds.
Mm-hmm.
These lights could be red, green, white. And the ones that were red, there were accounts of where the red light would shine down on people's properties and cause radiation poisoning in the area. It could be radiation in the water, it could be radiation on a specific person or the cattle. People were coming up with cancer because of it.
That's horrifying.
Very horrifying. In some instances, or I should say a lot of instances, people were receiving telepathic messages from the beings inside the crafts, which I found very fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah, very fascinating.
Do you have any messages that they related?
Yeah, it was basically be calm. They were trying to speak to them in through love. I felt like it was more like messages of stay calm. What you're seeing is just something you haven't seen before. That's why you're frightened. Don't be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing.
That's so much like the Betty and Barney Hill instance when they're trying to be like, yo, you're okay. But I think some
Right.
people can handle that message and some people can't.
Yes, exactly. We're just so afraid sometimes.
I don't know where I'd be. I'm a gamble. Probably be shitting my pants.
Oh.
You'd be like, oh, hey, what's
I'd be
up?
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, what message do you need to tell me? Tell me now, quick, before somebody sees you. No.
Take me with you.
Exactly. Other things that people see in the area, they find strange behavior in animals and other people in the area. They find that when they have a mass amount of sightings, people start acting a little bit different. I was trying to see what information they meant by that as far as strange behavior goes, but I think it was more like animals would make noise, extreme amounts of noise when they wouldn't normally be making that kind of noise. People just acting strangely, like not acting like their normal selves, acting kind of off. Other things that happened are there are typically a lot of strange noises, not just coming from the sky, but the ground. And when I say noises, I mean like kind of like maybe there's voices in a different language, or maybe there we're hearing like vibrational tones. There were also reports of ancient wolves, dire wolves, which I know before podcast started, we kind of talked about, just briefly mentioned that name.
Yeah.
Dire wolf is an extinct animal, supposedly doesn't exist anymore. It's just this very large wolf. When I think of it, I think of Jacob from Twilight. That kind of wolf.
For me, it'd be
Huge.
Game of Thrones, because that's like the animal of the Stark House, are these giant dire wolves.
Yes.
And so they have these beautiful white like wolf cubs in the series, and they're very mythical. And I honestly didn't know that they were based on a real animal, so I think that's super badass. And yeah.
So in their lore, they in the Uintah Basin, they believe that these are werewolves, that the wolves that they're seeing are actually werewolves, and that the aliens or beings are shape-shifting into the wolf, because it's a common thing that people have seen before.
You know, choose something a little more low-key, like a cat.
Right.
Like, come on, guys.
Oh, you are going to be so excited because one of the other types of activity they have in the area, Bigfoot sightings. Yep.
I mean, I'm excited. Yeah. That didn't sound very much. I'm like, but I just am like into it because anything is possible on Skinwalker Ranch. Maybe that's why it's the Disneyland. Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. And this isn't just on the ranch. This is everywhere in that county.
True.
So we're talking like this huge radius of things. Let's see what else. They have massive amounts of cattle mutilations, the kind that we kind of talked about earlier in the year or last year when Oregon had something similar happen, where the animal is just laying there deflated, the blood is all gone, drained from the animal, those type of cattle mutilations. And they come in mass amounts. So it's like when it happens, it'll happen on all the ranches. It's not specific. It's not just targeting one ranch. It's targeting many ranches in the area.
Does it seem animal, or they don't know what's causing it?
They said that they cannot find any puncture marks.
Okay. This is something I don't quite understand, because I'm going to just say, okay, it's aliens. Let's go with that. But what the hell are they doing with the cattle, and why are they... Is it exsanguating them of all their blood? Like, why is that going down?
Yeah. And the organs, but they believe that that's food for them.
Ew. I mean, I guess we eat their meat.
Right. It allows them to shapeshift. They need that in order to shapeshift.
Badass. Okay. It's like a symbiotic relationship, so...
Right.
That's what they need. Okay.
That's the theory. I don't know.
No, I like that. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one last thing that they see in the area, portals. and other strange lights. So they'll see these orbs, white
Mm-hmm.
orbs floating around, or green orbs, maybe even a blue orb occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
But the portals themselves is like a big, bright orangish yellow light, kind of brighter than the sun. And typically, at first, they can't even look at it, but then it kind of dissipates a little bit, and they'll be able to see onto the other side of it. And what they see is not Earth, and they will see things coming out of it. They see shadow people coming out of it, ships coming out of it, other beings coming out of the portals
Scary
into this world.
stuff.
So, and you're like, where's the proof of this? Where's the proof? That's what everybody wants to know, is where's the proof? Well, the proof is out there, but it's not being released to the public. So I'll talk about that in a little bit as to why. I will say that the local Indians believe that all of this...
They're Navajo, right?
No, they're called the Uintah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Uintah Indians, they believe that much of this stems from a place called Dark Canyon.
Is this a physical place or a mental place?
No, it's a physical place. It's in the middle of the forest, just outside of the basin. So the basin is kind of like the bottom of the mountain, and the Dark Canyon is maybe about 45 minutes away from the bottom of the basin. But people have seen stuff going on in the forest that comes down into the valley type area.
Mm-hmm.
And so they believe that the origin is actually up there in the Dark Canyon. And they have old Indian stories that have been given down over the years from people witnessing stuff up in that canyon. So I didn't get to go into all of that. Hopefully one day I'll be able to look more into Dark Canyon. I do have something fascinating to say, but I'm going to save it for the end when we're kind of going over theories.
Oh,
So
okay. A teaser. A teaser.
Yeah, a little teaser there. So, any questions so far before I go on to the next little set of...
No, girl, I'm thirsty for more.
Okay, good. Okay, so the next little bit kind of goes from like the 1980s to the 1990s. And in the 80s, there was a family that purchased this farm that we now call Skinwalker Ranch from a man. And these people, they were just looking for a quieter way of life. They wanted to move away from the city. They wanted to come somewhere where they could start kind of new. They had little children. And this family is called, their names were Terry and Gwen Sherman. Terry Sherman, remember that for me. Mm-hmm. So that later when we're talking about theories, I can throw him in there.
Okay.
So they called it Sherman Ranch. That's what they named their ranch. It was not Skinwalker Ranch at the time. There was a clause in their contract when they purchased the land that if they were going to start doing any major projects, that they needed to contact the original owner first. He gave them zero explanation or backstory as to why they needed to do that, but it was in the contract.
I saw too that it was like specifically no digging.
Right, no digging, because strange things would start happening around the property when you would start digging or doing major things. And the family, shortly after moving in, immediately started having things happening. And let's talk about those things. So they had an incident where a wolf came down, one of those big giant dire wolves came up to the family as they were out feeding some cattle, came up to the dad, and the dad was able to actually pet the wolf. It was very nice. It was friendly. It had no bad intentions until it saw the calves that they had, and then it started freaking out. The family got scared because it was starting to attack the calves. So they went and got a gun, just like any farmer would have. They shot at the wolf. The wolf did not even flinch. They brought a bigger gun out, shot it. We're talking about 10, 15 times that this wolf was shot directly, point blank. Did not flinch at all. And then eventually got the hint that it needed to leave the area, and it started walking away. So the husband wanted to make sure it didn't come back. So him and his son went after the wolf and didn't chase it, but was kind of tracking it.
Yeah,
And
probably
they
trying to
got,
make sure they can kill it.
yes. And so they got up into the area that they saw it go, which was kind of like in this mountain at the edge of the ranch. So they went up in there, and all of a sudden the tracks just disappeared, and there was no blood, no nothing. It disappeared
Like into thin air, gone.
into thin air, gone.
Yeah, so let's say like you mentioned before, it's an alien.
Mm-hmm.
What a weirdo. Like, he's just like in his little beast form. He's like, let me go check out these
Mm-hmm.
humans and make myself really super obvious and go straight up to them. And then all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden he's like, it's super primal. He looks at this calf and he's like, I don't know what wolf part takes over. He's got to go bite at it. And
Mm-hmm.
then from there, he's like, oh man, it's super awkward. It freaked out. Let me just run away and just disappear. So it just sounds like this alien doesn't quite understand humans. So I don't know what their game is.
I just have a feeling it's more than one type of alien or one type of entity.
I always go grays immediately when I think of aliens, unless otherwise disclosed. So what are you thinking?
Or
is that to come later?
I think I was thinking reptilian.
Because they're more nasty?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But at the same time, it could be the Greys, because the Greys, they wanted to always try to make you feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's hard to say. Let's see what else I had. Some other sightings and things that they had happen was they started having or wanting to replace a fence that had fallen down. So they were digging in the ground, and they put the fence post in, and the husband went to go, or had set down his equipment. He went to go put the post in, and he turned around and the equipment was gone. It was completely disappeared. And we're talking about a piece of equipment that I think that he said was over 100 pounds. So it's not like you could just easily lift it. It was something that they had to move with something with force to drag it.
Yeah, like I think it was a post digger.
Right, a post digger. So it completely disappeared. So he was looking for it, and he found it like over 100 yards away up in a tree.
Yeah, which is just like, at this point, it's just messing with him and making itself very obviously known. It wants to be known.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And in their house on the property, they had constant noises. They had poltergeist activity, which we've heard in many other stories, right? We've heard it in the stories with other alien activity. Even we can go back to Mothman, when the family was talking about how they would receive phone calls in the night, or weird things would start happening. I feel like alien activity and poltergeist activity, the more and more that I'm learning about it, feels like it goes hand in hand. So maybe those aliens are a catalyst. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So it's not all from the aliens. They're not controlling all aspects of it. You think it just maybe encourages one another?
Probably, that they work hand in hand.
Did you hear the one about Gwen and putting her groceries away?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Tell it if you would like.
Well, this one I like the imagery of it. It definitely makes me think of Ghostbusters. I guess she was putting away all these groceries and doing her thing, and then she comes back into the kitchen an hour later, and she sees all of the groceries are back in the brown bags, back on the counter, and she knows for a fact that she didn't have like a lapse in memory or anything like that. She knows that she had did it, and this kind of behavior was going on with everyone, like you're saying, with the post digger, even with the children that they were there. They were all like silently going through this process of having their shit being moved on them. Like it could even be just for 1 second. They turn around, and when they turn back, it's gone. And it took a while for everybody, I think, to talk about it and to even realize it was not just them that was witnessing it.
Mm-hmm. There was even an instance I read, or maybe it was on the documentary I watched. There was something, Gwen, she always locked the door when she took a shower. She went in, locked the door, took her shower, got out, and her towel and everything else was missing.
I heard that one.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they had tons of activity as far as poltergeist kind of stuff goes. They saw tons of shadow people, dark shadow people. Um, they would see bright lights, just like the people in town, bright lights coming from the caves, coming from the ground, noises coming from the ground, stuff rumbling underground.
Ooh, I don't like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is really
And
going to
that,
mess with one's sanity.
exactly. So imagine this happening for years to you and your family.
And your tools. Like, you're just trying to get
And your
your
tools.
posts,
Yep.
man.
Mm-hmm.
So I
And they
get
would
so pissed when I can't even find, like, my remote. Like, I can't imagine.
right, right. Oh, that's funny. Um, there was another thing that happened that I actually thought was very strange. They said one morning they woke up, went out onto the into the field to find these round patches of grass that had been missing,
Mm-hmm.
complete circles. And I have seen that one other time before. I don't, and this is only because I went to a museum and saw it. In Vegas years and years ago, they used to do that testing underground for bombs. And when you fly over Vegas, you can see the perfectly round circles where they used to do that testing at underground. And so that is immediately what I thought of when I saw the pictures of the missing grass.
Yeah, that could be one explanation.
Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying that what if it's not the government? What if it's aliens doing something? Because they said that it sounded, they're not the only ones who witnessed the noises coming from the ground and then seeing those patches. There are other groups of scientists who came in after they lived there that also saw the same kind of things. So this Sherman family, they lived there for a little while. It was kind of known at this point. I mean, they didn't keep their stories under wraps. I think they tried to talk to the local people about it to see if other people were having similar things happen. So they got to know their neighbors. They talked to their neighbors. And then enters a man named Robert Bigelow. Robert Bigelow, he's this eccentric, rich dude who is smart. He's smart, but he's also curious. He's curious to learn the truth about what the paranormal is. Things that happened to him when he was younger made him curious about Skinwalker Ranch. And he's a businessman, so he's really smart. So he got millions of dollars from the federal government and opened up something called the National Institute of Discovery Science. You'll hear it called NIDS to most people. And he used that National Institute to buy Skinwalker Ranch from the Sherman family. And of course, the Shermans were like, yeah, I'm out. I'm done. Have at it.
Yeah.
And
can't blame them.
Exactly. So Bigelow moves on the ranch. I mean, I should say moves a bunch of people onto the ranch. Scientists, smart people to do some research. He wanted to find out what Skinwalker Ranch was. Now, because some of his money came from the government, he was not allowed to disclose most of the stuff that he found there.
It's insane that the government is funding this. I love the fact that the government is curious and they're probably just trying to harness whatever the hell this portal is or power is and weaponize it. That's my thought.
And I thought it was too, they wanted to find out what it is so that they know what they're up against and see if it's something that we need to be worried about and fight against.
It's creepy because it's non-disclosed to us and we can't trust the government as is. But it's kind of an ideal situation for a paranormal investigator because you want someone to be looking into it. So it's an interesting turn in the history of Skinwalker Ranch for sure.
For sure. Yeah. He did a lot of research and I wish that I could get my hands on that. I know there were some people, George Knapp, he was able to look at it. There's a guy, Jeremy Corbell, he made this great documentary, Skinwalker. What was it?
The Hunt for Skinwalker Ranch?
Yeah, the Hunt for Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was what the book was called or the documentary.
Knapp wrote a book about it called the same thing.
It's the same? Okay.
Yeah, and George Knapp, he's this journalist, also hunting for the truth. He worked with Robert Bigelow a couple of times, he said. You know what's funny is that, and a lot of times when I'm researching this stuff, I already know just a little bit about it. And in my experience, I thought Robert Bigelow and George Knapp worked side by side all the time. But that's not the case on Skinwalker Ranch. They did not. I thought that they were doing this together, but they weren't. It was two different people working on the same common goal.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, was Terry his informant of the story originally? Was it the Sherman family that he got the story
Yeah,
from?
Terry Sherman.
Right,
Yeah.
so Knapp
Hmm.
was kind of on the pulse, and I think that the Shermans were afraid of it becoming like the next Area 51 and getting like super
Right.
popular, and like they didn't want this, they just wanted to be cattle ranchers. And so
Right.
he was told from the beginning, like, don't tell anyone where we are, don't tell anyone our names, like, leave us out of this. And so it's taken many, many, many years to get to this point to where this documentary and this footage was released. So this
Hmm.
story has been unfolding super slowly, and it's like a new era of knowledge that we have because of the documentary and what they disclose.
Right. Right. You are so right. I can't wait to see all the other things that come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get back to Bigelow. So he actually he studied it for years. He studied this Skinwalker Ranch for years. And like I said, they didn't release that information. And he was quoted as saying, the general population is not ready for the facts and the truth, not just for the ranch, but the origins of the paranormal phenomenon.
Excuse me, I'm thirsty. What is it?
Yeah, but that means it's something
Sick, twisted, horrible?
that our minds may not be able to wrap around.
Maybe muggles. What about us witches?
I don't know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think a select few are only open enough. I mean, like, even we have stuff that make us like cringe.
Yeah, it doesn't take
And
much.
yeah. mine's usually humans. It's like, sex traffickers and murderers.
Oh,
That's where
yeah.
I'm like, ah. What else did he say? He said that he caught a lot on camera. But once again, we don't get to see that information. So it was really hard for me because as I was digging more and more into it, I was like, Bigelow, let me know what you got. But he's being governed by the government in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So he's being silenced in a way.
And when he owned it, like, no one lived there. It was just like a research facility with guards and
Right.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was under
Yeah.
the impression of. So I wanted to make sure that's accurate.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So he did move people on the land that stayed there overnight, but it's not like they lived there. They just stayed there while they were doing the research.
And
so they'd have, oh, go ahead.
I'm just imagining, I was just probably what you're about to say. I'm just imagining, like, is it just like having security cameras and like, what are they doing? Just recording shadow people coming in and out of portals?
Right. Taking pictures. So they had photographers there that would take pictures. They had trail cams up. They had other stationary cameras up all over the place. They also had scientific testing equipment out, that kind of stuff, but to the time period. So think what you had available to you in the 90s, they would use that. So we're not talking about sophisticated stuff that we have today. We're talking about what they had available in the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they said a lot of times that they couldn't recreate the sightings. So something might happen one day and not the next. It was hard for them to narrow down what this phenomenon truly was. So even the scientist couldn't put a name to everything.
What were they seeing? Just the same stuff? Cryptids?
Cryptids. The same stuff that everybody in the area, the stuff that I talked about in the beginning of this episode, everybody was seeing the same things.
I would have loved for them to do tests on like cryptids or something like that.
I don't know, because they may have, but we don't know that information.
Or casts of footprints.
Yeah, I don't know. But
Why?
but after Bigelow, a new owner came in recently. Bigelow let go of the ranch recently. I'm wanting to
Oh
say within the
no.
past 5 years.
Who
Yeah.
has it now?
Now there's a new owner. I couldn't find his name. I think that it's out there somewhere. I just couldn't find it. Maybe you would have better luck at that. But somebody else owns it now. He has brought in new upgraded equipment, brought in his own research team. That was part of his, in order for him to purchase it, that was uh, Robert Bigelow's
He should
stipulation
do
so that he
some
can
night
continue the work.
tours. Like someone
Well, I
capitalize on
don't,
this.
I don't think that they think it's safe enough to do that.
Right? Like it's Jurassic Park for real.
Right. So he's brought in all this newer equipment for today's testing purposes. He said one of the things that they were able to do was test infrasonic waves, because if you remember, one of the things was everybody hearing stuff happening underground. He
Mhm.
said that they were able to use a machine similar to what they use for earthquakes. And during this one particular thing that they did, they could see lights coming up from the ground, shooting straight up into the air.
What?
They could hear the strange voices all around, and the equipment was capturing this information. They said that it's the information that came out on the printouts was something similar to what a manufacturing company would put out. So imagine that you're at a manufacturing company during the day, some random manufacturing company who makes cars. Let's just use that as an example. That it company itself puts out a certain amount of sound, and that's the kind of sound waves that they were getting from underground.
You know, when you were saying lights shooting up, it made me think of like reptilians in this underground base doing some
Exactly.
shenanigans. What
Exactly.
if?
Because we've heard those same kind of stories in the UFO community coming out of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
It's no different than that.
And I've
in
heard
my
of
mind.
reptilian underground bases. It's just part of their
Mhm.
like lore and their folklore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this new company, they have evidence of portals. They have evidence of craft coming from the portals. I'm hoping eventually they're going to be able to get that information out to us so that we can actually see it as, I think there's going to be more transparency. The more open that the government becomes to the idea of aliens already in our environment, the more that I think we're going to get to know about the phenomenon, the more that they're going to be able to be released.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just all interesting to me.
Dude, as soon as you're mentioning like proof of portals opening, I just had this overwhelming feeling to look over my shoulder. Like, I am not alone. There's something here. Like, it's just really making me paranoid.
I do have to say that when I was researching this, I was like looking at, because they have a website. Skinwalker Ranch has a website. I went to the website. There are photos on there. There are some hundreds and hundreds of photos. I looked at all of them. And I do have to say, when I was researching, I freaked myself out a little bit because there were helicopters flying in the area, which hadn't been flying for weeks. And now all of a sudden I'm researching Skinwalker Ranch and the helicopters are back. So I kind of freaked out a little bit. And I saw weird hovering lights outside of my bedroom window when I was researching. So I freaked out a little bit. I think it's all explainable, but in my UFO brain, I was paranoid.
Yeah, now I'm like clicking on their website, just like, what did you see? Oh my god. So, hello, rabbit hole. We'll link that down
Exactly.
below as always. So you guys can go
Yes.
check out that website.
So before we wrap up and actually say what we think Skinwalker Ranch is, I do have to say I found correlations in this story between Skinwalker Ranch and the surrounding area and Hellier. I felt like it's a lot of the same phenomenon that was explained in the documentary Hellier.
All right, which for maybe those that don't know, that was like in Kentucky. There were caves,
Yes.
there were supposed goblins, occult
Mhm.
activity. And how do we tie that all
Government
together?
involvement.
Yeah, government involvement.
Mm-hmm. How do we tie that all together? It's all around the same sort of parallel. It's all on that 37th parallel area, which has severe UFO activity. We haven't talked about that. We haven't dove into that rabbit hole yet, but I will eventually get into the 37th parallel rabbit hole. And I believe that Hellier, Skinwalker Ranch are very close to that parallel.
Okay, so it's this larger overarching area of paranormal.
Right.
Got you.
All around the world along this parallel.
Mm-hmm.
And so I need to dig more into that to find the correlation, to see if I can actually get to the bottom of it. Maybe one day I will. But for now, this is where it's taken me, is that I'm seeing these correlations in the phenomenon.
And you said something about Terry Sherman.
Yes, Terry Sherman, Terry Wrist.
Mm-hmm. Which, remind people about Terry Wrist, just in case.
Terry Wrist is a man who was writing back and forth between the people who created the Hellier documentary and himself, and he was trying to push them into this area of Hellier, Kentucky, to research the goblins.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what made me think of it, but as soon as I read that the guy, Mr. Sherman, his name was Terry, I thought for some reason that maybe Terry Wrist and Terry Sherman were the same person.
Right, it's that synchronicity mindset that Hellier
Right.
kind of puts you on. So, like, linking those two names, that kind of probably started this whole thing for you. I could just see you going off.
Yeah. Because then I literally went into a hole where I started looking and writing down coordinates. What are the coordinates of Dark Canyon? Mm-hmm. What are the coordinates of Skinwalker Ranch? What are the coordinates of Hellier? All around this 37th parallel. That's where I came up with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, the cave drawings, the lights, the noises. I was shook. I was shook finding the correlation, and I was like, has anybody else come up with this? And when I was researching to see if anybody else had thought of it, the only thing I came up with was on Reddit.
Good old Reddit.
Good old Reddit. So just maybe 5 people were having a conversation about this, saying, are there similarities?
Nice. That's really cool. I'm so glad that other people are on that wavelength. But you're still a pioneer, because it's only like 5 people.
I know. So I was just like, my heart was just like, holy cow.
Dude, yeah. It's just like that meme with Charlie from Always Sunny in Philadelphia when he's like, I've got it figured out. And he's got like all these boards.
Yes, that's me. That's me. With a cigarette on my mouth, just shaking. Except for I'm not smoking really, but that's just me.
Yeah, that's hilarious. You might be onto something, for all I know. Like, we're always using ley lines as an excuse for paranormal activity, so might as well use something like the 37th parallel to quantify and connect the UFO phenomena.
Right. It just makes me want to check to see if, since the 37th parallel wraps around the whole world, I want to know what else is out there in this same area. Mm-hmm. Is it all the same phenomenon? Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that like we're always zooming in on Skinwalker Ranch, but it really is a larger area. So
the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what is it, Sharon? What is Skinwalker Ranch? What is this phenomenon? What are your thoughts? Tell me what you're thinking.
Okay, so definitely I believe.
And did I leave anything out?
Right?
Sorry.
I know. I think you did great. Honestly, there wasn't any other stories that I was aware of that you didn't already cover. So good on that. And then as far as like what it could be, I think that it's probably something to do with these portals. Maybe these portals are allowing otherworldly things to come through. We talked about how we believe Bigfoot could possibly move through portals. We talked about how Bigfoot could possibly be alien, and there's weird paranormal stuff coming through, like shadow figures and spirits. And what are those? They're just living on other dimensions. They're lower vibrational beings. Some might call that a demon. So it just sounds like these portals are it's like a hellmouth, you know what I mean, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's just letting shit in, and that's kind of what it sounds like. It's just weird that what comes through isn't super tangible, or maybe it just doesn't feel tangible to me because I'm not there. I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, maybe portal's just another word for it. I'm glad we're talking about this, because as soon as you mentioned hellmouths, I'm like, what if portals are just in the old days, maybe they called them hell gates, which we've talked about before. When we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about hellmouths, we talked about hell gates. What if these are areas of hell gates? And we put that negative connotation on them years ago. So, of course, that's where my mind goes is what if this is something that for years we've been talking about as a demon or an angel or whatever, but it's really just these aliens trying to show themselves, trying to guide us. I don't know.
Yeah, what their agenda is never going to be clear, especially if they're just
Mm-hmm.
moving your objects around. Maybe they just want
Mm-hmm.
to try to communicate with us, but they don't have that much power to. So just being like, hey, I'm here is like the first
Mm-hmm.
step. Like they need that acknowledgement. I
Right.
don't really know. It's hard to
What do you
say
think
what
about
their agenda is.
Right, exactly. What do you think about the underground? Where does that take your mind?
Reptilian.
Okay. Just reptilian? No other stories by chance?
If we're going to go through Hellier, then I think of the goblins, but underground bases and hollow earth theories, that's really all
Mm-hmm.
conspiratorial stuff I know on the topic.
I remember a while back we were kind of listening to this other story, and they talked about potentially there being an underground train that went from base to base underground. Um, like that's how people got to Area 51 is this underground train.
That sounds
What if
really
that's
complicated.
right? But what if that's what it is partially that's under Skinwalker Ranch or under that area is just an underground train that goes from base to base and there's a stop there.
I'm all thinking about Elon Musk's tunnel that he uses
I know, right?
in California.
Oh, because knowing now, I felt like I really had to look geographically a lot at this, which I've never really put my mind into before, but now I'm being drawn to that. So I'm probably going to be digging into it more and more.
Mhm.
But like, I'm like, okay, Utah and Colorado, they're real close together. And there is an underground train station in the airport in Denver. And Denver and Skinwalker Ranch, I think, are on the same parallel.
Okay, so you're going all the way back to the reptilian base
Right.
of the Colorado airport, basically thinking that
Right.
they're connected. That would be crazy. But it's funny to
I'm
think that
telling
way,
you, it's
because
like
not only because that's like, okay, so why would there be an underground base in an airport? Is it just because it's like a big building and they can hide themselves easily under there? Like, do reptilians really need to use the airport to get here? It seems like they don't. Like, they can use these orbs, these UFOs, or these portals. I'm curious to know
the government.
why would they need to go between Skinwalker Ranch and the airport? That's just funny. Like, it's kind of like the Ministry of Magic, and that's how they could use their Muggle transportation, and then they have their
Right.
Muggle transportation. So
I'm just thinking that this transportation is for the Muggles, the humans.
right.
That's
The
why they
airport.
need something in the airport.
Mhm.
It's for humans or people that look like humans.
What if they're
to travel
listening
back
to
and
us
forth.
and they're like, these bitches
Well-
are onto us?
I'll know. If you all of a sudden do not hear from me again, my coven friends, then you will know that I have pulled off the wrong band-aid or pulled the wrong string.
Yeah, we're outing these reptilians.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. It's confusing because there's a part of me that says they want to be known, but maybe
Right.
they don't want to be known for what they really are. Like,
Well, I just have to keep them in a positive light. And if
That's nice
if I
of you.
if I start looking at everything in my life, like I had talked about in our last episode, instead of looking at of eyes with fear, and I start looking at my eyes with love and positivity, I no longer see the reptilians as a negative entity. I see them as curious and wanting to be curious about us, not control us, but wondering who we're about. So that's how I would look at the reptilians.
I feel
with
like
my
you're
eyes of
too
love.
nice, but at the same time, it's like super anime of you to be doing that. Like, you know how the main characters in the anime always like befriend the villain and then they're like good guys?
Right.
Like, that's you.
Yeah.
Like, all these weird cryptids will be like, no, the reptilian, he's just here because the earth is suffering and we have to give him love and then he'll be our friend.
He's just like that bad guy who's misunderstood.
Exactly.
That bad boyfriend of yours that you wanted to change.
Here it goes. Back to the bad boy tropes that we said we were going to avoid.
I know.
That's
But-
funny. But there's so many different ways to look at it. And
Right.
I don't know how I would feel. Like, is this a place I would avoid? Probably. I don't know.
I think I'm gravitating towards it. So I'm going into the light, Carol Ann. That's where I'm headed.
Ooh. I'm gonna have to call someone to help me pull you out with a rope. It's gonna be great.
Yes. I'm just going to wrap that rope around my waist real tight.
Okay.
I'm going to go down that rabbit hole. I just need you to keep
I'll
my head above water.
Tethered to reality. Be that astral cord to your physical body.
Yes. Thank you.
What are friends for?
Yeah.
I think there's got to be a lot of more specific tales. Like, I definitely need to read the book that George Knapp wrote on the topic someday.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know. I want to know more about these bipedal beasts that they were seeing too.
Yes, that's the thing is with the wolves, it was like a werewolf, not just a dire wolf. I feel like I didn't touch upon that enough, but
yeah, I just remembered about that. I was like, oh yeah, what about those cryptid guys?
Yeah, so those dire wolves, they could also walk on their hind legs in the witness stories. So it wasn't just on the ranch. These happened off the ranch too. People will be driving down the highway and see a wolf walking on its hind legs.
It's really weird. It's not something I knew about until we started this podcast, and it's just like dogmen are everywhere.
I just thought it was something I saw in Scooby-Doo, you know?
Right. And even that's the one thing I complain about Scooby-Doo is I'd say all the time, not all the time. There was like one movie where it was a real werewolf, but most of the time it was always just a man in a mask. Like, how boring.
Yeah, right. And so that's what we have to look at these as in my mind too.
A reptilian in a mask.
Yeah, a reptilian. Just a shapeshifter, a skinwalker, a shapeshifter. They're the same thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's it. That's all I got. That's all I got
there's
for
so
today. There's so many things that I do see us going down other holes to try to connect these. So it will happen, you guys. I promise you we'll get more information, but this is all we got now.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride looking into it. I definitely want to go check out their website and look at some of the videos that they have on there and see what kind of crazy shenanigans people have been up to in the Skinwalker Ranch.
I'm so excited. I'm glad that I finally had my chicken popper pop out just so that we could talk about this.
Your chicken popper pop out? That's funny.
My thermometer. You know, my thermometer. I'm glad I finally decided. I just wasn't ready yet. I just wasn't ready.
Well, we've finally tackled Skinwalker Ranch, guys. If there's other massive stories you want us to cover, you just hit us up at our email. That's cousinscoven2@gmail.com. And we'd really appreciate if you check out our blog that we have on there. You can always sign up for our newsletter. That's cousinscoven.home.blog. And that has all of our episodes starting from 1 up to the more recent stuff. And then our more recent things are on Podomatic that you can find. We'll link that below. And we've got merch over on threadless.com if you want some pentagram gear, some crystal ball gear, witchy hats, UFOs. We try to get as creative as possible and give you a taste of all of our
Yes, and I'm looking at trying to create some more art for us, and I think you are too. We're going to work together to try to create some fun new art so that you can purchase it. So, I guess that's all I got. May you find happiness in your heart, love for yourself, and join each other. Blessings to all.